off with introducing myself. My name's Josh Meyers, and you are?
I am Jacob Meyers.
Yeah, and we are the sons of Mark and Amy Meyers of the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue. So that's who we are. Just as like sort of a brief intro, we kind of don't really know what we're doing with this, but this is our podcast idea. We're always looking for kind of new ways on behalf of the Donkey Rescue to promote the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue, and this is just one of the ways I thought of kind of randomly. This isn't a way of informing people about you or I specifically. It's, just to talk about the Donkey Rescue kind of through our experiences and our lens. We started on the Donkey Rescue. I think I was 6 and you were 5, I think.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
2000, right? So.
Yeah, and then I'm now 30 and you're 29, right?
29 in June. But
29 in June, there. Yeah, so you're 28.
Yeah.
So that's how much time has passed, because the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue started back in 2000, so it's been like around 25 years now, which is crazy. But yeah, so this podcast idea is just a way to reach out to more people who might be interested in, knowing about us, or that maybe people that already do know about us, but interested to hear more kind of from a historical perspective about the Donkey Rescue. And yeah, like, again, don't really know kind of specifics or have a huge direction for this idea of a podcast, but the general idea is we're going to try to do maybe 30-minute kind of bite-sized episodes to give out information about the Donkey Rescue. We don't know where it's going to go, but we're excited to kind of try it out and see what we can do with it, see if people are interested in hearing more about this. If this is something that doesn't take off at all and nobody really cares to listen, that's completely fine. But to the extent we can provide anything helpful or anything meaningful, entertainment-wise, or however you want to say it, then that's cool by us. We'll keep doing it. Yeah, so to go back to kind of more background about the Donkey Rescue, like we said, started in 2000, 25 years now, going strong. Our mission is to rescue donkeys all over the world. So we have our main sanctuary location in West Texas, in a place called San Angelo, Texas. That's where we're mainly headquartered out of. We also have 2 other regional ranches, sanctuaries in the east and west of the United States, one in Virginia, one in Arizona, and we're kind of all over. We also have a lot of volunteer locations where volunteers in different areas of the country that maybe have a little land, they will help adopt out donkeys to the local area. But that's what we do. We rescue donkeys all over the United States, all over the world, in a lot of ways. And the goal is to help save donkeys that have been abused and neglected, or just not being cared for properly by either private owners or donkeys on public land as well. And then make them, get them to a state where they're adoptable, adopt them out to people all over that want donkeys as pets, because donkeys are, a lot of people don't know this, they're great pets. They make for great companion animals to have with you. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we do. I don't know if you have anything else additional. I could read off like the mission of the Donkey Rescue, but I feel like that kind of captures what we do. I mean,
yeah, no, absolutely. So like just what you were saying, right? It's all about the donkeys. Ever since, when it started in 2000, and we were barely starting school, we started, finding and getting to know how donkeys are and what they're, what they bring as a companion, as a pet. And I can say all the things like they're beautiful creatures, and they're caring and sweet, and they have great personalities. But really, it's hard to kind of say all that and without just knowing. If you've met a donkey, if you've had the chance to spend that much time with a single donkey, they are their own animal. Like, no 2 donkeys are exactly alike. They just like you would know this with if you had any other pet, like a dog or a cat. Like, they are their own unique donkey. They're great companions. And over the past 25 years, had a lot of donkeys come and go, and it's a it's a lot. It's beautiful. It's the rescue is been doing an amazing thing all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what the number is at now, but we usually boast sort of like around 13,000 maybe donkeys that have gone through our system. Putting that in air quotes, you can't see it right now with my fingers, but
yeah.
that's to say that we've rescued them and we've adopted not quite that number out, but a very large number as well. So that's how many donkeys we've interacted with, affected, taken in.
hmm
Around that 13,000 number, which is super huge. I feel like anytime I talk to anybody I know and they're like, oh, well, how many donkeys do you have? And, because I think most people think of like a dog rescue or a cat rescue might have 20, 30 cats or dogs or, similar types of animals that they've rescued, which is like a huge impact still, like even rescuing one animal is a huge impact. But when I tell people that number that's in the 12, 13,000 range, might even be higher, like 15,000, I don't know.
I do, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat. I couldn't give you an exact number.
yeah, but when I tell people that number, like they can't believe it. It's hard to fathom many of that many donkeys like just
hmm
existing, much less like going through our actual uh like rescue. And so that's a crazy number, but
Yeah.
kind of to what you were saying before, part of our mission also is to educate. And I think that's maybe part of why this podcast idea seems like such a good idea to me is, we want to educate people about the donkey rescue, but maybe also we can educate people about the donkeys themselves. And, we're constantly fighting stereotypes and, misinformation about donkeys. Something our dad, Mark, talks about all the time is, in cartoons, Pinocchio, when he was acting like foolish or gluttonous about something, he would turn into a donkey, and he was, being stubborn and being foolish, kind of. And same thing with like Bugs Bunny. If he did something silly, he would turn into a donkey, right? He would turn into a jackass, and so that's kind of the indication that he's being silly, stubborn, or even stupid, right? And so we are dealing with those stereotypes that have affected a lot of people in the way they think about donkeys. So we're constantly trying to combat against that because donkeys are actually incredibly smart and they're incredibly loving and affectionate, and they're really like intelligent pets and animals that you can interact with. And like you were saying, no two donkeys are the same way, and have just such individual personalities. And a lot of people don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't think if we weren't doing this, we probably wouldn't know it either.
Yeah.
So um,
I think the other part of that is just that most people don't really get they don't get many chances to interact with donkeys.
yeah,
There's always a horse ranch. There's always someone taking
yeah.
riding lessons, and they go and they ride horses and they see how these, and the horses are beautiful creatures, but there's really not the same. Like no one rides a donkey seriously. You'd only ride it if it's part of a joke or part of being, oh, look at the sidekick rides the donkey, right?
Yeah, no,
So
that's a great point. Yeah.
yeah, and but at the same time though, those people that do, they're always excited when they see the donkey come up, right? Like, oh man,
Hmm.
there's a like a nativity scene. It's like, well, you got to have a donkey in a nativity scene. Like we may not
Hmm.
need a camel or any of those other types of
Right.
animals that would go with that scene, but whenever the donkey pops up, usually people are excited to see it. But that's wise because they're harder to they're not seen. no one
Yeah.
no one has that donkey ranch. Every time you say donkeys, they say, oh, why donkeys? That's weird.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. People do ask that a lot. They say, "Why donkeys?" And it's like, well, why not donkeys?
hmm
Uh, I think donkeys need saving just as, if not not more, if not more than a lot of other animals that are commonly saved as part of like nonprofit, rescue situations. And
hmm
there's tons and tons of donkeys out there. They're all over, um, and a lot of them aren't being cared for correctly, and or just aren't being cared for at all. And so that's kind of our job. That's what we set ourselves out to do. You know, back in 2000, it started out as just our parents, Amy and Mark, and then us two on like 5 acres of land. Really small operation. Started out with one or two donkeys, and then 15 donkeys, and then 50 donkeys, and kind of exploded a little bit. But we'll kind of get into that more later.
hmm
So yeah, I think that's kind of I guess, a general intro to what the podcast is potentially about. That will likely change as time goes on, but we really just want to kind of provide a historical perspective on what we've done, maybe some specific stuff about donkeys themselves. And yeah, that's all there really is to it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. The question I get the most, probably in every single job interview I've ever done, or anytime I've like talked to somebody for the first time and they ask about my life or anything I've done, outside of work, I usually bring up the donkey rescue. And then the first thing I ask is like, well, okay, how did you get into that? How does one even start rescuing donkeys?
Yeah.
What do you usually tell people? Because I have my elevator speech, so to speak, where in 30 seconds I have the quick like story I can tell people to let them know how we started. But I don't know what you typically will tell people.
Yeah. Well, it's always so the job interview portion is always kind of a raised eyebrow, and like they're looking down at the paper, and they kind of give you that cockeyed look, and they're like, so donkeys, huh? And then they're like, huh, that doesn't seem. But
Yeah.
you get into it. It's like, yeah, so back in 2000, my parents started they just got a donkey, and they started taking care of it, and they fell in love with it, and before they knew it, they had I think we had like a neighbor or someone else in town. It's like, oh hey, we have donkeys, and we're kind of trying to find a better home for them, kind of thing. And mom and dad picked them up too, and over the next year or so, before you do it, they just had this huge collection of donkeys. I think before they knew it, they hit like 20 donkeys.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know how I don't know how that happens. I mean, I was 5 when it happened, right? So
Yeah.
but it happened fast. Before they knew it, they realized this was something that they were passionate about. They realized how much they wanted to care for the donkeys and make sure they had the best lives they could possibly have. And here we are, 25 years later. It's the biggest nonprofit animal organization in the country. At least I believe that's what
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
know
there's
there's
any
a there's
qualifiers we need to put on that, but yeah.
yeah, that's probably fact checkable, but it's definitely up there at least. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
so I was going to say certainly like no other nonprofit has had the impact on donkeys as we have had.
it exactly.
Easy to
Yeah.
say. So that's your story that you usually give people.
Yeah, and then I swing it into, oh well, that's why I'd be good for the job, because I'm obviously very caring, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of hard work, and I've been kicked in the chest a few times by donkeys, so I'm tough, I can.
Yeah.
So there you go, I'm the man,
Yeah, and then you can say I'm used to being around jackasses, and they go,
Yeah.
haha, I get it.
Yeah, and now like, there's no horsing around, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Like,
You're like that's not funny.
that's not funny. Not
That's
even
too
close.
far. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the story I usually tell is that so back in 2000 we had one sort of equine animal as a horse. We had a horse named Sam. Do you remember that horse?
I do.
Yeah. So it was a horse named Sam. I don't know where we got him or why we had him, but we had a horse. We used to have to go to this feed store, and we lived in kind of a small rural town in Southern California. So we had like a feed store we would drive to get hay for the horse. One time we went there, they had a donkey for sale, and I believe that donkey was Izzy. Izzy was the first donkey we ever had at PVDR. Technically our first rescue before we were a nonprofit and it was kind of official as the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue, but that was our first rescue was Izzy in a lot of ways. And they were like, we have this donkey and, somebody just dropped it off here at the feed store. We don't really know what to do with it. We're just kind of selling it for cheap. And we were like, oh, well, our horse Sam needs a buddy. So we picked up Izzy, brought her home. And it seemed like every few times we would go back to the feed store to get hay, there would be a couple more donkeys there. And so we eventually just kind of kept buying it because nobody else was taking these donkeys. We also, I think it bears mentioning, we lived in what I call like a rodeo community. And so a lot of it was very like, it was based around the rodeo. So a lot of people did like the rodeo.
If we don't buy these donkeys, someone else will kind of.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of the donkeys were there, I think, initially, because donkeys were often used for like roping practice. And so the roping would like nick their ears or affect their legs or something. And so,
Yeah, you could always see like like kind of like the rope burns around their ankles, right? Once they,
yeah.
yeah,
And so we kind of noticed this issue of, wow, like all these donkeys we're getting have kind of been abused and neglected, and we're seeing this as maybe a bigger issue than just the few donkeys we initially thought. But I think our parents got to the point, we had like 15, maybe 20 donkeys, and they looked at each other and were like, what are we doing here? Why do we have so many donkeys? Are we going to keep doing this? What's the deal? How are we going to handle this? And it was around that time we started the nonprofit known as the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue. It's called that because we lived on Peaceful Valley Drive. Is it drive or road? I can't remember.
Peaceful Valley Road.
Yeah, Peaceful Valley Road. This just super long dirt road that our house was on with the 5 acres that we had. And we started the nonprofit so we could get donations in and kind of do things official as an animal rescue. And like you said, I think neighbors and people nearby us reached out and they're like, hey, we have these donkeys, or, oh, I know somebody that has these donkeys. My parents can't take care of these donkeys anymore, and we're looking for a new home, stuff like that. And so we just kept growing kind of quickly. And as we researched and as we looked into it and as people reached out to us, we realized that the issue was larger than just this community that had a handful of donkeys that needed help all throughout California, all throughout even neighboring states. And so at the time, Mom and Dad, Amy and Mark, they were working full-time jobs. Mom worked at our school district, at least part-time, like kind of like doing stuff.
Yeah,
near,
it's like a teacher's aide kind of thing.
Yeah, just to be near us and kind of around what we were doing, which was really nice. And then our dad worked construction, did electrician work at a really high level. And so they both had other things going on. And then we were starting this donkey rescue. And it just really took off. I it wasn't long before we had 50, 100, 200 donkeys. And we just kind of kept growing. But yeah, that's the story I usually tell, is the Izzy story of, one turned into many very quickly. And it was kind of just the right place, right time, and the right people seeing what was going on and deciding to do something about it. Which is so strange to think about now, because like we were there, but it is like very, very selfless, and it's very important that they did that,
Yeah. But I think it's just that you mentioned there was the horse and then we got the donkey, and I think they kind of fell into that trap of like, we moved from Palmdale, which was kind of a suburban community, and at least we were living in a suburban community, and we move out to Acton. Now there's these 5 acres, there's all this wide open space and clear blue skies, and it's like, well, we got to do something with all this, right? So
right, exactly.
next thing you know, we're getting donkeys, and it's kind of funny, if you would have told them, way like even like 6 months before they moved, like, hey, this decision of you moving out to Acton is going to lead to you eventually starting and running the largest donkey rescue of all time.
Yeah.
They'd probably look at you like you're crazy,
Yeah,
they definitely would. But
no, for sure. Yeah, and since those kind of like early humble days of the donkey rescue, we've gone on to do great things. Jake and I we sit on the board of trustees. Every nonprofit has a board of directors, board of trustees. That's what's required. And so we sit on that board now. We help vote on things, make decisions towards like kind of the larger goal of the donkey rescue. But we do not work at the rescue anymore. We are no longer shoveling out pens, doing things
driving
like
tractors
that.
or
Though we did do all that for a very long time.
Yeah, we did our time.
We did our time. No, yeah. But we've since moved on to kind of our own jobs and careers and stuff. But we still serve on the board of trustees. Yeah, since the beginning, we've done so much. We've helped out. We've flown donkeys from Honolulu, Hawaii into LAX airport before. We've gone across the Canadian border to help donkeys before. We've, gotten donkeys that have come over from Mexico before. We've worked in the Caribbean some. We've done work all over, and it really hasn't just been restricted to where we started, where we are now. Like, we're constantly looking to expand because, the mission isn't to help every American donkey. It's to help every donkey. And so to the extent we can do that, and to the extent our resources allow us to continue to push the envelope over and over again, we will always continue to do it, as long as it's the end goal, remains the same. So,
yeah, I would say to that point, even in the early days, I remember that was some of the early growing pains that were started, right? Because it was just the four of us we had the older siblings, were there to help as well, like especially when we were in elementary school. Like we've always had like the family to help, but once it hit a certain point, there was just the four of us for a while, and we moved out to Tehachapi, the more 100-acre, a much larger ranch to work with, and got that up and running and functional. And then, next thing we knew, Dad was getting calls to drive out to Texas because there's a whole bunch of, donkeys running all over the highways, and like they didn't have anywhere to go, So Dad would start getting calls to drive halfway across the country, and it's before we knew it, it wasn't just, oh, we're it's kind of a local donkey rescue. It's no, there's a donkey problem in Texas that needs to be solved, and there's a donkey problem in Oklahoma and all the way up to Kansas, and like before you knew it, we were getting stretched thin to expand.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of takes me to the next thing I was going to ask you. What's like an early memory you have of the donkey rescue? So again, it started when you were 5 and I was 6. What's like an early memory you have of something related to the donkey rescue? Because it's been so ingrained in most of our lives at this point, it's hard to distinguish between like before we started the rescue and after. And so I'm curious, do you have like any childhood memories or just any early memories of the donkey rescue and what it was like?
Yeah, I just to the point of it just being the family for a while there. I remember, every family like on a Friday or Saturday or whatever will go out to dinner, and we had our local Mexican place, Don Cuco, and we'd go there. That was the tradition, right? Every weekend we'd go get us some Mexican food. But there were towards the cold and wet time of year, we have this huge stockpile of bales of hay.
Yeah.
And we had cover for it, but the way the wind would blow and the rain would get going, like it would just soak every side of the hay bales. And before you knew it, there was mold and all this nastiness growing on it. And so there was one day that Dad knew a storm was coming. It was like, well, like everyone was all dressed up. We had our nice shoes on. We had a nice pants, and I had my button up on. I was ready to go. But nope, hang on, guys. We got to tarp up the next, it was this huge old, it was practically like 20 feet tall. Like it's probably at least 20 by 20 feet at minimum. But it was, especially when I was 5, right? It was this gargantuan stockpile of hay, and yeah, we need to protect that. That's the only real. That's a lot of money's worth of hay, and in those early days, we couldn't afford to just replace it.
Right.
So there we were, it's like 6 p.m. all hungry, ready to go eat, and tarping up a big old stockpile of hay. Probably took about 2 hours.
Yeah.
To get it all done.
No, that's definitely like a one of many memory, because we've had to do things like that all the time. Like we always kind of put ourselves and what we needed second to the donkeys, because we were the only people in the position at all times to help them out. And so if it meant like taking more time before we go out to eat, or before we make dinner, getting up extra early before we go to school, we always kind of
Christmas, right? I mean,
yeah,
you still worked on Christmas.
Yeah, waking up early on Christmas and going out after Thanksgiving dinner to feed donkeys and stuff. So yeah, that's how it was, and we were happy to do it, I think. But yeah, and so an early memory, I was trying to think before of what I remember. I think I just remember when we really started to get our name out there as the Donkey Rescue. A lot of people were calling us from all across California and also nearby states. So I just remember like driving a lot with mom and dad on the weekends to go either deliver donkeys, like because somebody had adopted them, which was great, or go pick up donkeys from somewhere and bring them back to our ranch. So I just remember like a lot of driving, a lot of traveling. We got to see a lot of the country just from donkey rescue stuff, like working with our parents to go deliver a pickup donkey. So that's like a good early memory I have. And then yeah, stuff like you said, there's the times that are less like fun to remember where, it's a rainstorm or ice storm or snowstorm and you're having to break the ice in the donkey water trough so that they could drink water that morning because it was so cold, or you would lean on a piece of pipe corral and your gloves would be frozen to it, so you'd have to pull your hands out and like leave the gloves there till the next day when it thawed out a little bit. So yeah, those are the things I remember, just like kind of random bits of memories of doing things for the donkeys. All good memories and all, but some of them were more challenging than others for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, kind of like on the other side of it, when did you realize how big, how impactful the rescue had become? Like, we started really small. We've now become much larger, very big, kind of in our scope. So like, when did you realize like, oh, wow, like this is something that people know about outside of like our kind of like group of volunteers and board of trustees and our family? When did you realize like how big we had gotten?
Yeah, I think it is probably, I mean, I knew we were, I mean, the way, before you knew it, we had all these donkeys, so I knew that they were coming from somewhere. But like there was one day that I think it was the BLM or someone, they came with a huge semi truck with like a double decker
Oh
trailer
yeah.
full of donkeys. I think it was at least 100 donkeys in that trailer.
Yeah.
And they just came to the ranch and they were like, I mean, Dad knew it was going on, and but when you're when you're that young, things just happen, and you're like, oh, we're doing
Yeah.
this now. So I just remember waking up that day and looking outside, and like there's this huge truck, like, and it's just full of donkeys.
Yeah.
And Dad was like, all right, well, they're gonna go over here, and and Dad was always ready to go. He always had a plan. And I just remember like, man, like like that's a lot of donkeys.
Yeah,
uh
yeah, for sure. And the BLM is the Bureau of Land Management.
yeah.
They handle like the wildlife on public lands and stuff. And so we've interacted with them a lot over the years because of the very nature of what we do. But yeah, I remember that too. I think two of the semis showed up. We were like, one showed up, double decker
Yeah.
trailer filled with donkeys, and then like yeah, the second one was right behind it, driving down like our little dirt roads that you and I made like on a tractor,
Yeah.
like in between the kind of hastily set up donkey enclosures that we had. It was very bizarre to see that happening. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good one. I have probably a few. I remember setting up like, I think it was around the same time. It was definitely at the Tehachapi Rescue Ranch, which was sort of our second one that we moved to after Acton, after we kind of grew to a size where we needed more than 5 acres. Tehachapi had, I think, like 100, 120. And so it was around that time I set up a field trip for my 6th grade class.
Yeah.
Like 30, 35 students to come out on a school bus to the rescue. It was very bizarre. It felt like I was like, hey, do y'all just like want to come to my house and come see like all my animals? Like that's how it felt. It wasn't like, oh, well, we'd like to set up a field trip for you to come see the donkey rescue and see all the progress you made. It was just like, oh yeah, no, like I want you to come see where I spend all my time, like outside of class, and feed donkeys and feed animals and stuff. That was like a big moment of like, oh wow, other people have seen this now.
Yeah.
People I know that like I interact with every day at school, they've all seen what we do now. That was a big one. I think the biggest one was pretty recent, actually. Can't remember what year. I think it was 2021, probably, when Dad was CNN Top 10 Heroes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So was it 2021?
No. Well, no. It was well, we should probably look it up.
It was 2000 or 2021, right? It wasn't 2020.
It was around there. I think it was before COVID, is why I'm sticking on that. 2019. It was August of 2019. Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah. No, for some reason I thought it was during COVID. Anyways, so CNN, every year they do this thing called like CNN Heroes of the Year. And
Mhm.
so people get nominated. People will nominate themselves for as a CNN hero. And basically, the idea is like you've done some great advocating or like charitable work with your own project that has affected like this group of people or animals or things. Could be related to the environment, like cleaning up beaches. Could be related to animals, like what we do. Could be humanitarian efforts all over the world, stuff like that. And so somebody had nominated Mark, our dad, to be a CNN top hero, like hero of the year,
Mhm.
and I think CNN itself narrows the pool down to 10 heroes
Yeah, I
from
think it
all
starts at
the
like 50
applications.
or something.
Yeah, I mean it starts out as like a bunch of nominations, gets narrowed
Mhm.
down more and more and more until it was 10. So then you have your
Right.
CNN top 10 heroes, and Dad was one of them. Kind of as like at least like for this purpose, like the figurehead of the rescue. He was highlighted for the
Mhm.
rescue, for
Right.
Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue and what we had all done. Because he's the executive director, so like I think he was
Well,
kind of put up
yeah,
as yeah, and
founder,
like
executive
yeah,
director.
clearly yeah, and like uh, directing the donkey rescue kind of along the
Mhm.
way, obviously.
Yeah, but to take that a step further, it's not just that he got nominated. It's like there's at least 3 or 4 rounds of voting that
Right,
happens after that.
right,
So,
right,
because
right.
it's like,
So
okay, cool, like someone recognized him, but yeah.
yeah, so right, so like dwindling down to top 10 heroes, then it's like public voting for a period of time, and then one of those 10 heroes gets selected as the CNN hero of the year. Unfortunately, it was not Dad, but still making top 10 heroes is absolutely crazy. Like he literally was on, a CNN huge broadcast. They do it every year. Like it's a huge event that they put on. And we got to see him and Mom together in New
Mhm.
York, like dressed all nice, sitting next to actors and actresses and like
Yeah.
writers and directors and comedians and stuff that we see on TV every day, like sitting next to them, all at the same like tables and stuff.
Right.
Absolutely crazy. And then Dad got to speak about the donkey rescue and what we do and all the things that he's been able to, to accomplish with the donkey rescue. And it was like putting us on the map in a very different and new way. Again, it was pretty recent,
Yeah.
after we had already become very large, but that was like something I was like, whoa, like I was watching it on TV, like
Yeah.
I was watching on TV just like everyone else was. And so absolutely uh, awestruck by that. That's one thing that I tell people about a lot is that we got to do that. That was great.
Yeah, it's always that when that was happening, it was kind of a funny thing because in my place of work, like we mentioned the job interview, like of course it's going to be on my resume, but I try to avoid bringing that up because it always just leads immediately to, oh, so you're a donkey person, huh?
Yeah.
That whole line of questioning and the ass jokes that follow thereafter. But there's a couple people I was very humbly and suddenly like, so so my dad's CNN hero this year, and they're like, what for what? And then I'll tell them. But
Hmm.
that was a really cool thing. Just like like I've always been proud and happy for my parents. Like they've done this amazing thing. But that was probably the first thing that was like in a single statement. You could just say something that everyone understands is this awesome achievement, and
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, but they did it like it donkeys. You know what I mean? Like if I said my dad invented the cure for cancer, they'd be like, wow, that's crazy. That's so cool. He's a CNN hero for that. I get that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
But
people are
to
surprised to
say
hear that it's related to donkey rescuing. Yeah.
exactly,
Um,
that was very cool.
yeah. Um, but okay, I think that's kind of all I wanted to get into for this, I guess, initial episode. Is just kind of a brief talking about the rescue and you know what we've been able to do so far, what we're hoping to continue to do forever, and kind of get some perspective on that. Do you have anything else you want to mention before I kind of sign this thing off?
Uh, no, not really. Just it's the rescue's it's a beautiful thing. It's a big deal, and the point of the podcast is just to help reinsure that and provide that extra information for anyone who wants to know more. So
For sure.
um, yeah, hoping that we can do this and make this a regular thing.
Yeah, yeah, we'll keep doing this as long as it makes sense to do it. I mean, if one or two people feel like they're getting some out of this, then that's good enough for
Yeah.
us. We like doing
So,
stuff like this. We like talking about the donkeys.
so there's definitely going to be one person listening. That's probably just going to be like me. But if there's two people, if I see a second, download or something, I'll know for sure. It's like, oh, we're getting somewhere.
That's how we'll
So
know. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so if you're interested in hearing, if you're listening to this and you already know about the Donkey Rescue, you probably already know where to find us on social media and our website. But I'll say it again, in case you're curious, and in case anybody new is listening and has no idea what the Donkey Rescue is and want to learn more about it. We have a website. It's really easy to find. If you type in Donkey Rescue on Google, I think we're like the first 3 or 4 or 10 things that come up. You can go to donkeyrescue.org or pvdr.org. That will go to the same place, but that's our website. You can learn more about us. Has our phone number if you ever have any questions or want to call the Donkey Rescue to ask questions about what we do or adoption. Specifically on adoption, that's the goal, is to rescue these donkeys and get them back out to really good homes with really good owners. And so if you're curious more about that, you can find that on the website as well. You can find us on pretty much all social media platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram at Donkey Rescue. We're on Twitter. I'm not sure what the @ is for that, but we are on Twitter as well. You can find us there. And we're a nonprofit organization. We are able to do what we do only because of the donations from people like me and Jake or anyone we know, individual people donating money to this cause. So if you're curious about how to do that, please, again, go to our website, pvdr.org. We even have a gift shop where we sell pretty cool stuff. I've bought a few things off there before. We got shirts and
They always got a
stuffed
calendar.
animals and calendars and candles and all kinds of things that are donkey related. And of course, all the benefit of that goes back to the donkeys. And like we mentioned before multiple times, we're just curious to see how this does. If this is something that's worthwhile to do, this podcast, we'll keep doing it. And I did create a new email address just for this. It's pvdrpodcast@gmail.com. So if you have questions or comments about the podcast itself or about the donkeys or about anything, you can send it to pvdrpodcast@gmail.com and let us know. But yeah, for now, that's us signing off. Like I said, I'm Josh and that's Jake, and we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.